Since the last podcast on Marriage Isn't About You, that podcast, the night that I published that, I couldn't sleep very well. And I think what happened is I don't know if this happens to you people out there, but when my creativity gets inspired, or I become inspired, it's very difficult for me to sleep, because I've always felt like I have like crowds coming out like a door, and they're all trying to speak to me and tell me things. And I don't mean that in a schizophrenic way. Obviously, I'm connected to reality, but what I mean is there's all of these, somehow there's been an opening, because I kind of felt like there was an opening for me at the end of that podcast, and some little door that had been maybe pried shut, or not pried shut, pried open, but it had been pushed closed. That experience in the podcast sort of kind of broke it free, and so parts of you that kind of get pushed away for probably really good reasons sort of start to come out, because they feel that they've been given permission somehow to come and roam about and participate in your conscious life. And it's really exciting for them, I think, those parts. And in a sense, it's also really exciting for me too, because it means that, I don't know, it's not like new information necessarily when they come out, but it's sort of like, say have you ever seen that movie, The Lonely Guy? And he has all of these, he's so lonely, he has like cardboard, replicas of people in his apartment to kind of simulate the sense like he's having a party, but that nobody's really there. It's sort of like sometimes in life, our ideas about things and people, our memories are like these cardboard cutouts. And so we know they're there, but they're not animated and they don't have a life of their own. But sometimes those cardboard creatures come to life. And I feel like that's what happens to us when we start to become stronger as people and can tolerate more distress. We can tolerate more the enlivening and the actual 3D breathing personas of our memories, instead of just reducing them to this flat, fixed cardboard thing that reminds us that they're there, but that we don't have to feel the breath and the beating heart and, the pulse of those memories. And so I sort of, it's exciting when one of our cardboard features comes to life, but it's also a little scary because, scary is not the right word, but it's maybe a little daunting, sort of like, when you're having house guests and you're excited to have the house guests, but you want to make sure the room is just right for them, and you have to make sure that there's a proper space for them to be, and you make room for them, that essentially, and you reorganize your life so that there can be room for those house guests. And when parts of us that have been flat and deadened for so many different reasons come to life, we need to reorganize our homes to make our psychic homes and maybe even our actual homes to make room for the realness and of what we are. So that can take a lot of mental energy, and I think that's probably why it's hard for creative people when they come upon something. And I think we're all very creative, but when something gets unlocked, we can't sleep because we're trying to figure things out. We're like trying to make room for something that's emerging, and we want to be, at least I do, I feel I'm always so happy when people are coming to visit me, that or when these features inside of me are coming to visit me, these parts, it's like a homecoming. And I get really manic, and even when with real visitors, I I find myself like cleaning strange parts of the house that I would never clean, like actually dusting, up some back corner of a room, or fans that I wouldn't normally do. A lot of dusting is a big thing for me. I don't do it all as much as I should, just because sweeping is enough for me with these animals. So I start to want to dust everything, and I want to get the grime off of the ceiling over the stove or behind the backsplashes. Or I see, like, I just start to see all the grime in my life when I have a visitor coming. And it becomes very apparent to me that the grime needs to be removed, because somehow, I guess there's a natural urge to want the place where the visitor is coming to be like cleansed, and it's like prepared for a special arrival. And I don't know, I think it's like a purification rite or something. So, you want them to come into a room and feel like they want to be there, and they want to stay, and they're comfortable, and they're enchanted. And whether that means scrubbing your house clean, or as much as you can, hiding the dirt as much as you can, or creating some beautiful food, something simple, even as like nuts and cheese and crackers, and lighting some candles, and wanting to have a flower, or all of these ways are ways that we say, I want you here, and I don't want you to go. You're welcome. And I think we need to remind our guests that they're welcome, because some part of us knows that it's a vulnerable position to be a guest. And to be in that role. So I love thinking about these rites and rituals that have been built into our cultural practices, and how they manifest even in our own lives, even as those customs and practices are being, erased or minimized for their importance. It's so deep why we do these things. Anyway, so I figure that's what I was doing the night after that last podcast, is psychologically just trying to make room for my guests and my visitors who are making the journey to be part of my life and expanding my reality in such a positive way. So some people would call those creative, like ideas would come to you, or memories. And so there was so much, and so I felt overwhelmed. And I have always been this way. I get overwhelmed with all of the visitors, and I just have to, I started to see them almost like, it was so random which one I would pick to actually sit down with, and which one would it be? Luck? Would it be, oh, I have the time for this one, but this one would have been great, but I just didn't have the time, and it's gone now. Because, the visitors, they come and they wait, like in the, what's that part of the, the vestibule, like churches have vestibules. I remember the vestibule. That's where, before you go into the sanctuary and you go into the church, there's a vestibule. And I feel like the visitors sort of crowd the vestibule of my life. And I don't know if I can, like, who's going to get into the actual sanctuary. So that makes me so nervous that I'm not going to pick the right one, or that, I don't know, I guess I just need to not worry about it. So, but I'm kind of taking the time to explain this because it has just really continued on. And I can tell that I'm going it since that last week when I published that, I don't know, it's been like almost a week ago. That experience has continued, and hey, I'm down here. So hold on. And as it's continued, I'm busily trying to figure out how to, accommodate, like I said, more and more of the visitors. So that's something to think about when you begin to process things in your life, is that you will have a lot that comes to you, and you'll maybe have some increased anxiety about, well, how do I accommodate this these this life? I think memory is kind of a form of life, and because it connects us to our present day, it's not. I don't see it as disconnected. I'm going to start sounding very woo-woo, and I wasn't really planning on doing that, but I can't help it. So I've decided I'm going to try and start small here, as I've explained this. So this is how I manage with the anxiety. I don't even know how I do it. You know what? I can't even tell you how I do it. I just start with one small feature of the whole experience, and I'm going to talk specifically about something, because sometimes we need to limit the apparitions, the visitors. We need to consign them or confine them to a body, and that's how they can come to life. It's an embodiment. So that could be specifically talking about one of these memories, or one of these, or visiting somebody in real life. So you go from the spiritual realm to the actual corporeal realm, the descriptive realm of the senses. And I've discovered a great deal is lost on that journey between the spirit realm, between what's in the heart and the mind, and what actually comes out in the words, and in the concrete realm. Much is lost, and that's for me, it's always been a devastating, and that's a too big a word. That's always been kind of a small devastation that you, as somebody who's wanting to excavate and bring to life the abstract realm into the concrete realm, you just need to realize you're not going to get it all. It's not all of it is going to come out into the concrete realm, and we lose a lot on the journey, and in the I guess they say lost in translation. And so I'm hoping that we can all just acknowledge so much is lost, but there's always another round, and there are always parts of us waiting to make the journey out into the realm of where others can see them and visit with them and be ignited themselves. So, and who gets to make the journey, and who survives it, I guess I don't really have control over that. All I can do is try my best. One thing that I've been doing in the last month or so, one thing that came to me, was to actually leave my world, my home, and go immerse myself. I didn't think of it in this terms, but I just said I'm going to go visit people that I love. And I decided I would do it like I would take a day to journey there. And usually I wouldn't go too far away, like an hour or 2 hours away, to people who I wouldn't normally see. And then I would spend the night and then come back the next day. So that's not something that I've done a lot in my life, because I generally only go away with my family. I don't go off by myself. So it's unusual for me just to say bye to the people that I tend to hear. And something told me in the last couple of months that I should do that. And I don't know, maybe I was feeling a little, I really don't know all the reasons. And if I tried to tell you a few, you might think, well, you forgot this and that and the other thing. But I think that I needed to get perspective somehow. So that was my personal reason for for wanting to leave my home for those days. But I also know how much I enjoy the people that I went to visit. And what I was really excited about was just to be immersed in their actual world, not talking to them on the phone or doing, texting with them or seeing them at an event or, which would be very populated usually with a lot of other folks, or even meeting them for, lunch or something. I just wanted to go see them in their living space and their homes where they, there's something so precious about a home. And all the people that I went to see have homes. They take a lot of their own type of pride in their home. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do that. So I started to do that. And I also wanted to do it because I think that I have anxiety about leaving my home and always have, because some part of me always worries something will happen to my home or the people that I love. And I've had that since I was little. Maybe it's some form of separation anxiety, of the fear that your loved ones will die if you're not around or something. So I know that I have that, and that's not a pleasant way to live. So I don't think it's healthy. I'm not, you might have that. It's not fun. So I thought this would be a good exercise for me to go away, to be immersed in somebody else's world and to not worry about my home, and just to trust other people can take care of things. That probably sounds ridiculous to some people, but it's, a feature of my life is that, I mean, I don't worry, like when my husband goes away on business trips and things like that, I'm completely fine. It's not a matter of, like, I can be alone. I don't have problems with being alone at all, but I don't like to leave my family in the house alone for some reason. I don't know why, but I haven't even really explicitly stated it because I never really did leave them alone. So I wasn't even fully conscious that I didn't like to do that. But I noticed that with these excursions that I've been taking, that I pretty much forget about them right away, which is interesting. So I thought that I couldn't do it. But as soon as I got into these other people's worlds, I was completely immersed in their world, and I didn't worry about my family. So I thought that was a learning experience, and really good to know. And sometimes, these are constraints. They're not good, and I just need to be more aware of them. So I visited, like I said, these 3 different folks, and I noticed also that, I don't know if this is a coincidence or not, but I noticed that my husband has also been very different toward me since I started taking these little journeys. It hasn't been like every week. It's just been, I don't know, it's been every 3 weeks or something I went. It wasn't a big deal, but I didn't leave in an angry way or anything like that. It wasn't like I'm out of here, but it was probably somewhat unsettling for him too that I was getting away, because I think partially, originally I was thinking I need some space to think, because my husband was, for some reason, since the whole election and this kind of divisiveness from the political realm that kind of infested or infected our home, in some way I felt like he was trying to, like, I would never bring it up, but I felt like he kept bringing it up, and it was sort of like this divisive thing, and it was getting to where I couldn't stand being treated with such disrespect from him, because he such overt disrespect, but through this using this like political ideology as kind of like an excuse, and so I started to feel really unsafe. And so, but I thought I didn't know exactly how to address that. I did say that to him, but I don't think he realized he was doing it. I don't know, but we were just fighting too much. And so, and then I would think, why are we doing this? So I would try and do all these things to make for stability in the home. And then there would be just these comments thrown out about this, that, the other thing. And I felt like I was being kind of baited. And so I think that may have been part of my original reason for trying to get a little distance, to get to kind of just not to leave, but just to kind of, I don't know, just get away from it. And also just to be around people who I felt like I could fully relax with, and who loved me. And so, but when I left and I came back each time, I noticed that my husband was becoming kinder and kinder to me. And I don't know if he was conscious of that, but he was treating me with so much more affection and appreciating me. And I wasn't, that wasn't my intent with these excursions, really, to get that, because I didn't think that was really possible. But I didn't know. I thought the problem was too strong, but or too deep or something. But I think one thing that I've learned is that another reason why I stay at the house isn't just because I'm worried about something happening to my family. It's because I came from a different kind of world than my husband came from. He's sort of from a more urbane, educated world, I guess. And I was more from, I guess people would call it working class, and kind of more, but not working class, but able to really function in the world really well. And my family, they own their own businesses, and they're very smart, but they are not conventionally educated in universities for the most part. So, but anyway, so I think with this whole Trump election thing, and I felt like my loyalties were sort of torn between my family being of this class of people that were being sort of put down in every way in the culture and in the media, and being associated with that, and then his people, which I am sort of, I guess, or I would appear to be of, since I came to the city and I became educated and am a quote unquote, thinking person, or not that, no, that doesn't make sense. Everybody's a thinking person in their own way, but just became part of the educated kind of, I don't know, the quote unquote cognitive elite, as some people would say, which is a really weird term, but that's kind of the city that we live in, super liberal. And anyway, I think whenever I would want to go spend time with my family members, which I was feeling more of a pull, I've always loved my family so much, but I think that I had run away from them in some sense way early on, not because I was running away from them per se, but because I think I was trying to figure out how to manage in the world with all of the, way back when, and I kind of saw the writing on the wall. Oh, I need an education. I'm not like the boys in the family who all, learned construction and that trade and were able to do all these things. So I figured as a woman, I needed to get an education. And so, and also because I was a really curious person. Anyway, so I think for most of the time, it's always been like, oh, I'm not of that. I'd say for the first, 15 or 20 years of my relationship with my husband, I was always trying to prove to myself that I was an educated person and that I could run with the big boy cognerati or the cognitive elite. I don't know what the cognerati. I just made that up. I don't think that's a word, but there is a word that's like that, and I can't remember it. It's anyway. It's sort of new. Anyway, so I think when I began to sort of realize that in a way I'd had to put aside part of myself in order to become part of that. I think, of course, there was a lot missing, you know? So I think anytime I would want to go spend time with my family, my husband would feel threatened by them. He felt like he wasn't of them and he wasn't accepted by them. And so he would not want me to spend time with them, and he would always he was never that happy with me having that contact. And I never really worried about him having contact with his family because I wouldn't have, but he never really did because his family, they're sort of distant from each other. They're all that's just a different style. But my family's very warm and embracing, and they're just so loving and incredible. It's intimidating. For some people, but a lot of people have always wanted to be part of my family, whichever family member there is, they always draw people to them because they're very generous and giving and open-hearted, and every one of my siblings practically, they all have they're like gravitational forces, and it's pretty amazing. So I think my mom and dad must have done something right. And who knows? I mean, who knows what we've inherited? But it is something that it kind of blew up for me because of my father dying and being killed so early, and then my mom not being well. So that party felt like it had ended when I was 11, when my father was killed. And then but most of my siblings were older and had already started their families by then because I was the youngest of 8. So that was going on for them. Even though it was very upsetting for them what happened, they kind of had a chance to grow up. But for me, I think that I had a different relationship to my background because how the world was changing and when I came of age, and then also the personal circumstances. But anyway, so I think that's always been there, that my husband actually admitted to me that, because last time I came back from visiting my niece, we've been having very good conversations. Every day we have a conversation, but we don't talk about politics. And we just have a glass of wine and we listen to lots of records and music on Spotify and all of our music, and we talk about life and things, but we don't. If any topic of politics comes on, I don't spout my opinions simply because I don't even know if my opinions are correct anymore. I don't know what is right and wrong, but I do know that I believe in free speech. That I do know, and I do have a lot of values that I know my husband shares, but we don't talk in terms of political parties as much. I'm really trying to stay away from that with him because it just leads to kind of, I think, an unnecessary fight. Anyway, so, and he also in the last month read some book. I'm not sure who wrote it. I think the guy who wrote The Black Swan, which I got for him, and I didn't, Nassim Taleb, I think is his name. Anyway, he read a book about how the political parties are all there to divide us, and that kind of helped him. So he's been kind of trying, I think, to focus on seeing that this whole party system is kind of has gone haywire, and it's dividing us because of oligarchy and things like that. But whatever it is, he's decided to not kind of see people in those divisions, and that could also be the thing that's helping him to not kind of create war with me around the political stuff. And so, but anyway, he did admit that when I came back from my niece, he said, I feel like when you go to be with your family, like you're going to leave me and you're going to go away and you really don't want to be with me and you'd rather be with them. And I thought that was a great thing to admit. And I, I, I don't know, it felt like that brought us closer together, that he could just acknowledge that instead of kind of undermining me and kind of making me feel scared and unsafe. Because when he does that, it certainly does make me want to go away. But the thing is, I have kind of a different view of marriage, which is, I don't really think you can get away from, it's very hard to disentangle yourself from someone when you've built your whole life with them. And so my idea is to work on myself. And if I need to go off and find my love and inspiration from other people and build them up in their lives or whatever, come back and be good to my family. And if that isn't enough, that's too bad, I guess. But I'm trying that, and I'm not going to harp on my husband to do something for me. But it seems like he has really responded to, his gathering of his own information, having his own turnaround, and then also, realizing that I am not going away, and I realize that my family can survive without me, and for a little bit, and because we've internalized each other, you internalize people, and that we're better people for being able to take a bit of time and then to come back refreshed with kind of new inspiration from seeing other people and how they live and being able to bring that back. So one thing that I do with my husband is, every day I try and have things ready when he comes in the door. I don't do it every day. I try maybe 3 or 4 times a week, just to have he likes it. He said when he walks up and he sees in the window that there's a candle burning, he feels like he knows everything's good. And so I try and light a candle, and then we listen to some music and sit down in our positions in our room, our living room. We don't have a TV in there. And we listen to music, and he tells me about what happened to him during the day and any little, concerns or ideas or thoughts. But it all kind of is staying within the realm of him and his life instead of us talking about too much that can get us into these fights about politics. And I can tell him about little thing that happened, something that happened to me. And then there's that time spent where there's no problem or anything. We're not having to sit down because there's a problem. And then we can, go our separate ways or we can end up having dinner and spending more time together in the evening, or he can go off and do something in his office or whatever, his music. So, or I can go, read. But I just try and have this a little calming, transitional ritual, and that's been really nice. And all the animals, the dog and the cats, everybody seems to like that. And I think that's a really great practice. So I guess today I'm being pretty darn abstract, like I said, or not. But getting in and out of worlds is so, it's not easy, and it's just something that we need to be mindful of. And old features of us from our old worlds can come back and come to life. And, I want to spend time with my family members because they're not cardboard features in my life. They're real people, and I need to spend time with them. And just as I need to spend time with the inspirations and apparitions that come to me in the middle of the night, I need to be able to spend real time with the people who I'm from or the, friends that I love. And the one thing that I was thinking right before I came downstairs this morning was about how we have, we can be accomplishing different things at different times in our life. Like sometimes we might be in a period of flight in our lives, and sometimes we might, like fleeing kind of flight. And or we might be in like a period of like returning, like making our way back to something that we forgot, when we were fleeing. And I think for me, I am in a state of return. But I think that this can happen to us all through our lives. And that's partly, I think, like these parts of me are also returning to me when I invite them back in. And the return is, it's really exciting in so many ways. Like I was saying in the last podcast, it's overwhelming. It feels so incredible that I want to tell people about this, because I want you to know that if you're in a state of flight, like I was in for so many years in my life for very good reason, you're leaving a lot behind because you have to, make yourself light in order to move fast, move quickly, and to find safety, because you're fleeing because something is feeling very unsafe, or you have to move along. Like Winston Churchill, he said, when you're going through hell, keep moving. I thought that was a really profound thing to say. And I think for me, what I take from that is you don't linger when you're in hell. When you're in a period of chaos and upheaval, you tend to move, you must move very quickly through hell. And you don't want to stay there, because you could wind up staying there. And I do think, so you're moving quickly. That means that you're doing things. You're putting your life in order. You might be kind of black and white in your thinking. You're trying to create something, and there's a threat, and you can't make a lot of nuanced decisions, and sometimes you can't be very sentimental either. Sometimes part of your heart has to be cut off when you're in flight. And for me, I think that my early years put me into a state of flight. And so I moved quickly into the world, and I didn't look back at my life. I had to leave people behind. I had to I did. I had to leave people behind. And I went to build my life because I had to survive something that felt like a collapsed war zone psychologically, with, the deaths and the mental illness and, I don't know, maybe some sexual abuse. I don't know all that. There was all there. I know there was that, but I'm not going to focus on that. But just, I had to move forward with my life. And so now what I think might be happening is I've gotten into a state of where my life has felt for some time more settled. And now what's happening is all that I had to leave behind is returning to me, or I'm returning to it. And I believe this could happen to a lot of people. I honestly think this is probably just happens to everyone if you really pay attention to it. So when the returns begin to happen, you're overwhelmed with your own power that you survived, and you're overwhelmed with how much love you have for what has returned to you. Because it's like, that they didn't forget you, and you didn't forget them, but you had to kind of make your way. And there's so much mercy and forgiveness and hope springs eternal, right? It's that when you go through this process, you know what hope is, and like, you want to tell everybody, if they're in a state of flight, it's going to get better. You're not always going to feel alone, because if you get to where you can be a little bit at peace and set something up, build something, create a garden, create a world, then maybe you'll be able to invite those ghosts from the past back into your life and into the garden that you created. And I feel like that's what happened this last weekend, because I went to visit Joseph and Sarah up in the mountains, and I've never visited them by myself before. And in the last podcast, Marriage Isn't About You, I talked about Joseph and Sarah. They live up in the mountains, and they moved to the mountains many years ago, 45 years ago. And they, it's only about, 2 hours from my house. But there's, just listen to that other podcast, and I can't go into everything about them right now, because I think I might be running out of time. Oh gosh, I am, because I need to go to the bus. But for my husband took the car today. Anyway, so I went to visit them, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. And I think I'll just come back later and do another segment of this, because I was so incredibly blessed to spend time with them alone, and it was so incredible. So I'm going to stop here for now, and I will come back later, and I will tell you about my visit to the mountains with Sarah and Joseph, and being kind of inside their world for in their life, in their mountain community and all that. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. I guess that's it for now. I'm really happy that I got this out. So, return. That's what the theme of this is about. Returning home.
When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high, and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of a storm is a golden sky, and the sweet silver song of the lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. You'll never